So everybody, happy morning, and let's begin. We have around 62 participants. We might have more participants to be joining. Hello, everybody. This is Tanu Jain, and today I am got for you the new transdisciplinary descriptors. So currently, I am a trainer. I am a concept-based curriculum trainer. To a certified trainer, an independent trainer by myself, but currently I am a trainer at the TIPS Learning and Research Institute, from where we are beginning. And I'm also a core team member who is responsible for
Excuse me, ma'am.
organizing. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
not able to hear you properly. Your voice is not audible.
Is that so for everybody?
No, ma'am, no.
No,
Not clear.
it's I.
Ma'am, you're audible.
All right. Thank you so much.
No, ma'am, you're
Thank you
audible.
for. Yeah. Thank you,
No, ma'am.
ma'am. Can you please log out and log in again? All right. I'll share my screen and then we begin. Okay. So I hope the presentation is being shared to everybody. So today we are here for the Mastery Miles, TLRI bringing you the Mastery Miles, the first session. It's our first session of the 12 series session of masterclasses, which we have the 90-minute masterclasses, which we have got for you. And this is the first series, mapping the new transdisciplinary theme descriptors. So basically, okay, it's by me. My name is Tanu Jain, and I am your presenter for today. And I'm basically a concept-based curriculum and instructional trainer. I'm currently a trainer at TLRI, which has organized this masterclass series. I'm also responsible for organizing, facilitating trainings for TIPS campuses, as well as a member of TLRI, we conduct trainings for outside the TIPS campuses also. I have been, I had 12 years of experience as an IB educator. Only last year, I have moved from teaching to training within my institute as a trainer. And I'm also a digital instructional designer. So that's all about me. And I'm completely passionate about, sharing my knowledge, because I always believe, knowledge shared is knowledge squared. So that's about me as a person. And so today's goal, so basically the whole 90-minute session has been, chunked into 3 areas. The first one is unpacking the new theme descriptors. So whatever I'm going to be sharing with you is my perspective about the new theme descriptor. So it's a collaborative thing, which you can also share yours. The second part is mapping the descriptor to the conceptual focus, especially the subject-specific focus, and then exploring the planning process. So that's where we are trying to go into, the whole planning process, conceptual planning process. Before I begin, actually, I want to share with all of you is that towards the end of the session for your certification, we will be sharing with you a Google form, and only when you fill that Google form, we'll be able to give you the certificates. So please make sure that you receive your Google forms. So we'll be sharing the QR code for that. So please do fill that for your certification. We will be issuing the certification towards the end of the session. If the Google form is not filled, we will find it very difficult and challenging to give you the certificate. So I request you to make sure the Google form has been submitted. So let's begin. If you have any questions and things like that, we can do it towards the end. We have Q&A. You can have a note of it, or in between, you can definitely, when we have a pause and reflect session, you can definitely unmute when I ask you to do so, so that we can go, we can have the session done in a very smooth way, an engaging way. All right. So basically, what we are first looking into the first chunk is the old versus the new descriptor. So when I was going through that new descriptor, when IB released that new descriptor, I was pretty fascinated about what is there in the new one and how it has evolved, or what are the similarities and differences within the old and the new one. So when I started putting it down, this is my version of it. This is my version of, according to me, how the old and the new stream descriptors are. So basically, the focus have become more from the older one, which were more general and broad, to become more defined subcategories, which really helps in the clear areas of inquiry. So that has really made the avenues of inquiry very, very explicit, which is quite interesting, and I feel very nice. I request people to please mute yourself. Thank you. The connections also, initially the connections are more of human focused. Now they have made explicit connections to have that balance between human and natural world, because a lot of future driven and transformational concepts have been added, which I feel is, quite interesting. And then I feel somewhere the subject specific opportunities have become quite clear. The clear pathways have been explored toward the subject specific concept. So you can clearly map your subject specific integrations with the new descriptors. It really makes it very, very easy. So I request, please, people to mute yourself. Thank you so much. Uh, Developmental progression. I think one of the thing which I was fascinated was, if you see, most of them are in 3 points. And when I was looking into it, according to me, it shows a gradual progression, from concrete ideas for younger learners to, abstract ideas for the older ones. So that's the way it is being, designed, is my perspective on it. And I really fascinated. So what was my perspective on my take? And as we go ahead, you will be able to see that. And then it is more futuristic, future forward thinking, more towards sustainability transformation. So let's go a little, dive deeper into each one of the themes. So the first theme, what you see is who we are. So initial in the older descriptor, the major focus was on the human experiences, the dimensions were more towards inquiry into the natural self. I think now they have shifted it more towards identity, and basically identity, not personal identity, but also as a collective identity. So now, I think according to my understanding, so this has been, reshifted or broadened into an identity. It's not only about what we mean as to be a human, but now it is all about the collective identity also, not only the personal identity, through the lens of relationship and belonging. That relationship and belonging is one of the key factor which is there. So along with the learning and growth and health and well-being. So now they have varied, where the avenues have become very specific, and the identity. So now it's like you are trying to inquire about yourself and your identity, not only your personal identity, but also your collective identity within a group, through the lens of health and well-being, relationship and belongingness, and learning and growth. And that's what is like who we are. So then when I was thinking, how does it look like from, earliest to grade 4 and 5? So when I think of that progression, that developmental progression, I could list down the broad concepts, which we could cover under, the kindergarten. So which is like identity, family, friendship, emotions, physical health, basic emotions, moving toward the broader societal ideas, with roles in the relationship, with families, conflict, responsibility, growth, and well-being, to a very, very abstract and complex ideas of diversity, emotional intelligence, social. So now we are moving from personal identity to collective identity, from kindergarten to grade 5. So this is how, even within your POI, I guess these the conceptual focus can really showcase those progressions. Next is where we are in place and time. The old descriptor was more about human journey and interconnectedness. So you had those orientation of place and time, discoveries and migration, and personal histories, and interconnected of civilization. So now I think they have broadened it, made it more transformational in terms of getting that periods and events and artifacts. I love the fact that artifacts have been especially been written there. And also, it's not only about migration and civilization, but then natural and human drivers. What are the driving factors that had led to those movement and transformations? So that has made the inquiry, opened the avenues of inquiry and those futuristic thinking. So I believe that is one thing which I found interesting in the new descriptor, which I found that inquiries will be more future oriented, more action oriented, given more areas, uh, probably in comparison to the previous ones. And then we'll be able to map the subjects, pretty easily here. So if you see this, how does the developmental progression look like? I'm moving from homes and, familiar practices to personal histories, to migration, exploration, artifacts, to global and human environmental historical events. And then the third is drivers of change. I think that transformation, that drivers of change, that avenue towards migration, that addition of that drivers of change has made it more and more, explicit connections and more transformational. Next is how we express ourselves. Initially, it was more about discovery and expression. It was all about creativity, your personal expression through your value, based on your values, based on your beliefs, based on your culture. It's all about extension, your creativity and aesthetics. But I think the new descriptor has become more broadened in terms of it is now accepting diversity of voice. Now it is more towards voice and perspective. I mean, the expression, it's basically through personal expression, social expression, cultural expression. So variety of voices, variety of expressions have been, specially added so that we can have variety way of expression. So all those cultures, values, beliefs, and aesthetics have been all put under, your personal communication practices, your social communication practices, I guess your cultural communication practices, which makes it so very broad. Yes, give you the avenue towards your probably your expression, variety of expressions you want to incorporate within your unit. So it give you that scope, not limiting that. It has broadened that. Though we might be doing that, but then I think the very word, personal communication practices, the action component, the futuristic thinking, probably the transformation has become more explicit. The avenues have become more better here, according to me. So when I see this in my POI, or when I see this as a journey, I might move from imagination, creativity, from basic stories, basic form of communication, to cultures and symbols and personal expression, to poetry, cultural practices and art, then to moving to artistic expression, my voice, global communication, multiple perspectives. So it is more towards perspectives, more towards influencing, more towards diversity, variety of ways, more towards your personal and collective voices. I think that's how to express ourselves. I don't say that there's a major shift, but yes, there are some changes, there are some shifts within that. So the shifts are some places it has become broadened, some places the lens have become little specific, which is giving more subject, which is giving more subjects related, inclination, subject related integrations, very, very explicit, not keeping it implicit. When I see how we organize ourselves, it was initially more towards human systems. It's again about systems only, but it's all about, systems, structures, and networks. Now they have added that very fact of ecological systems and social systems. The very word added is intended and unintended consequences have made the understanding and the conceptual focus and the lens of the unit very, very explicit. It gives you the inquiry clearly. It gives you the action component, the futuristic thinking, able to transform the sustainability component, the transformation component, right? So all those things have very, very explicitly been put over here, which was at times I felt implicit in the before ones. The idea is that. It's basically just to understand that what has the focus shifted. So initially the focus was understanding the systems, human made systems. Again, here is again understanding the systems and structure and network, but it has broadened to bring in the ecological system, the social systems, livelihood approaches, not keeping it only to the small economic systems. So it has moved towards decision making, social interaction, specific trade practices, fairness. So if you see over here, moving from classroom systems to decision making, the livelihood, the resources we use, to governance, to trade systems, to economic consequences, to collaboration. So if you see this, this is a gradual transformation from roles and responsibilities to social systems to trade practices. So basically, these are all human-made systems. So it's all interaction about the human-made systems. So decisions we make, the local decisions we make, the global decisions we make, the interdependence of them, all these are put together, and the systems which humans have created. Yes. So that's how we move within the POI and how are we organized. Next is sharing the planet. Initially, sharing the planet was more about social harmony, that is sharing those infinite resources, being about rights and responsibilities, about balancing between the individual and collective duties with peace, sharing of infinite resources. But I think now it has become more towards human and interdependence. So the inquiry has become, though it has been broadened from an inquiry into the interdependence and natural world to rights and responsibility. The very thing about coexistence, complexity, the adding of these coexistence, complexity, and wisdom have really made it very, has broadened the whole complete theme as a whole, where not only the rights and responsibility, the peaceful and the conflict, but also that human and nature, how we coexist together in this world together. What are the complexities we have? What are the wisdoms we share across? What is the nature of it? So that lens has been added, which makes it more broader, more fruitful. So if I have to see this, sorry, if I have to see this from the sharing the planet lens, so it's basically like I'm moving from living resources. So in the kindergarten, I'm learning about sharing the resources, taking care of nature, animals and plants, to moving to conservation, peace and conflict, interdependence of species, economic ecosystems, ethical responsibilities towards in grade 1 to 3, and probably to sustainability, climate change, justice, complex ecological systems, pathways to peace, and equity, sharing and equity within grade 4 and 5. So this is how I believe and I feel the transformation across the POI might look like. How the world works, I feel this was more of a kind of a science unit where you have scientific inquiry and impact basically into the natural world and its laws. But I think they have they have shifted, broadened the focus towards, sorry, I request if those who have unmute can mute, please. Thank you so much. I guess they have broadened the focus towards more natural, bringing about patterns, cycles, systems, and even discoveries, innovations, possibilities. It's not that it wasn't there, but then putting it explicitly there in those points has really made us understand that these may be the focus of our units. So when I see those three dots, if you must have observed that every new thing has those three dots over there, those three layers over there. When I was working on these layers, it taught me that, the first layer may be the foundational layer to the next layer of, middle primary. And then you have the above, probably that last layer, the last thing is for the, upper primary. So if we put it in this way, probably it can really help us. And this is how I was thinking when I was doing this. So probably, when you see patterns, when you see the previous one, patterns, cycles, and systems, and I thought probably weather patterns, season cycles, living thing cycles, all put under the kindergarten. Two, if I have to go before with diverse practices, methods, and tools, and I would look into methods and tools like simple machines, simple systems, life cycles, forces, technology. So those are simple machines, renewable energy. So those are basic systems to the very much. If you see the last one, sorry, if you see the last one, discovery, design, innovation, possibility, and impact. So you move towards scientific methodology, the process, the innovation, the human technology. So when I was trying to decode it, according to my understanding, I thought they have made those focuses very, very progressional, very, very specific, so that it becomes easy for us to map the whole POI, have those developmental progression, have those subject specific progression, very, very easy, so that we can create a POI which is of relevance and coherence. So this is my understanding of all the six themes, the changes which is being brought about, as well as now the developmental progression I see within the POI, from kindergarten to grade 1, 2, and 3, and this. So if we try to understand those three lines, probably we'll be able to do it. So when I say now, let's pause and reflect. I would like to say that now how well, uh, you need to pause and reflect is look into your own POI, look into your own central ideas, and then we try to understand how well your current central idea align with these subcategories. When I say each one of these lines are your subcategories. So how well does your central idea align with these subcategories? So if it does, well and good. If it doesn't, then what can be done? Are the selected key or related concepts, are relevant to the new descriptor, to provide that conceptual inquiry aligned with the new descriptor? Do the lines of inquiry align with the new descriptor? Have you figured out which units are relevant and which needs readjustment or replacement? So when we were taking this registration, and we had one of the questions to know how many are using this, and we almost had like 50-50 odd kind of 50% of the people said that we have started working on the new one, and 50% said we haven't yet. So basically, I want you to, I don't know whether your chat box is really working or not currently for me. If it is not working, I want to hear from one of you. You can unmute yourself and just share with me. Is there anybody who have started using this new theme descriptors? Have you made any shift in any of these points? Have you made a shift in your central idea, or in your key concept or related concept, or in your lines of inquiry, or you have changed a complete unit altogether towards that? Is there anybody who has done it? People, anybody would like to unmute yourself into it? I don't see anybody. So I'm assuming that nobody really has tried the new descriptors yet. I would
No,
say
ma'am. No, no.
not yet, right? I want to say this is the first chunk of my presentation where I have, glanced you through the changes. I would again want to say that these changes are not, a bigger shift. It's just that a slight change they have made. I believe they have made it more explicit. They have made it more organized, the descriptors, than previous ways, so that it can give us a developmental progression, as well as the broader concepts, which I call it as conceptual lens to, design the inquiry has become very, very explicit. So, and then have the subjects towards that has become easier for me. So I look the new theme descriptor from that angle now. And then I also try to look into it. Okay, they have given you those 3 pointers. Does, the whole of my POI is able to have those pointers? I request people, yeah. Does my POI, am I able to have those pointers there? Am I able to cover all those themes, all those, concepts, or the broader concepts within my POI? So now they have made it very, very specific to us, like patterns, cycles, this. So now, whether do I have something with that? It's easier for us to really do it. Or for example, like, artifacts, or something like coexistence, or something like interdependence, or something like personal communication. So this has become easier for us to, okay, do I have a unit on this? Do I have a unit on that within my thing? Do I have that mapping? So Now, this has made it very, very easy for us. It has made probably, so if when we try to rework on the POI from that particular angle, probably what we can do is we can have those subcategories, try to align, okay, this subcategory probably I will be covering within my early years team, this middle category probably within my grade 1 to 3, and the last one I will try to fit in within my 4 and 5. So I'm able to map and still I'm able to get that progression. Yes, so this can be easily been done, for us, and then those can be your conceptual focus of your unit. Okay, so let's get back. If you haven't done it, I would just suggest you to know when you want to adapt. So just brainstorm all the central ideas. Try to align all the central ideas with the new descriptors. And then you try to audit. So when I say audit, I mean try to identify the gaps where subcategories of the new descriptors are not fully addressed. So when you try to put it over there, okay, this subcategory is missing and this subcategory somewhere has to be added. So what can be done and how we can refine it. So then you revise your central ideas or your lines of inquiries to fit in the descriptors, right? And still ensuring that the transdisciplinary opportunities are maintained. Implement one adapted unit and see. I would suggest you, like many of you have units, your school, your academic year completes by May. Probably at least most of you will have at least one unit next coming up. So try to align that single unit of yours, that central idea, lines of inquiry based on the new category. Check whether it is aligning with the new category. If yes, nothing like it. If it doesn't, so how can I align with the new category? Are my key concepts and related concepts, are aligned with the new category? Are my lines of inquiry is supporting, that alignment with the new subcategory? If yes, well and good. If not, try to adapt and see how does the inquiry go in. And if the inquiry makes sense, and if you see that, then slowly and steadily you will understand that for each one. Start small. Directly, I would say directly do not enter into POI. Take unit by unit, and then try to map horizontally and then vertically. I would suggest you probably that, really might make a change. So at least begin with the first one. I will share with you how do I design, my units using the concept-based inquiry. Probably that can give you some ideas to do it. Okay. So this was the first chunk of this thing where we looked into the whole descriptors, how the old descriptor and the new descriptor, how things have changed, how the concepts have been progressed from, developmental progression, and how we can align our central ideas in the things like that. Now, alignment to subject-specific focus. After being a CBCI trainer and started working my units through CBCI, I started feeling that I'm more confident that not only a transdisciplinary unit, but then I'm able to consciously and intentionally create units which have that subject focus, especially subject depth. And I do not leave the subject understanding to chance. So I'm very intentional in my subject rigor, subject depth, subject conceptual understanding. So if you want to see this, this is how I try to look into it. So when I see this is like how the world works, I will always see in this whole thing, when I am inquiring into patterns and cycles and systems, diverse practices, methods, and tools. These are my subjects, right? So I can use science as a subject to understand the natural systems. So if I have any unit on ecosystem, tectonic plate, water cycle, because how the world works, it's very easy to connect with sciences. So which is okay. So I will be dealing with forces, energy, material, but also social sciences, how I understand the natural phenomena, because now it is not only about scientific principles, but has broadened to phenomena. So when I am broadening it to phenomena, I'm still able to investigate about the natural cycles within that phenomena. So that broadness has got that social sciences, that scope for social sciences in within the to shape the societies and culture. Shape societies and culture. Okay. And then I'm able to put in my language. So obviously you have scientific explanations, scientific reports, presentation, art. Now I am able to, through diagrams, paintings, and digital media, able to scientific representing. Basically, when you say art is about representation, how I'm able to do that with that art focus, and then math with data analysis and patterns. So you have that strand of data analysis and patterns. I'm going to be able to use that over here within the whole thing. So when you say discovery, design thinking, so you have the design thinking cycle probably over here, the possibilities, the innovations. Obviously, the design thinking cycle may come into picture. So you will have a lot of data analysis will come into picture. A lot of reporting of language and scientific principles might come into picture. That's your science and subject specificity. As we move to sharing the planet is all about coexistence, rights and responsibilities, peaceful. So now how does it look like in sciences? And again, sciences will have systems, biodiversity, human activities, ecosystems. Then you have social sciences, so investigation on conflict resolution, sustainability practices, resource management, language, persuasive essays, debate. Since we're talking about conflict and peace, a lot of persuasion will come into picture. So persuasive essays, formal letters, advocacy in environmental issues, research, art, obviously creating visual projects that highlight the beauty of the nature. So using art, math, again, the statistical data. Again, the graphs, again, the analysis of the data. So that again can come into picture over here. When I move to where we are in place and time. So where we are in place and time, again, we can take into sciences because it's about the natural process. Now, where we are in place and time has got the drivers of change, the human societies. They have got into picture all about human societies, not only about the personal history, but also societies. It's not only about the events and artifacts and the periods. It's also the progression further, the drivers of migration, the drivers of change is also looking into picture. So then we got into historical narratives, personal reflections, and art. Obviously, artifacts is one of the key part of over here, which is art connection, the traditional ancient traditions, the historical events, creating art as a medium of language. Then math, again, timeline, maps, calculations, historical events. So when I say social sciences, by social sciences, I mean history, geography, economics, culture, all these those subjects come under the social sciences. So when I put all these, so all these, really help me to go deeper into my inquiries. So you must be wondering why, when we are talking about transdisciplinariness, why subject is important. How much my understanding is for a better transdisciplinary unit, the subject, the disciplinary understanding, the disciplinary transfer is very, very important. And even the standards and practices says that you need to give are the inquiries giving proper scope to the subjects, single subject as well as subject specific inquiries and depth. Until and unless we are not, because your key concepts, your related concepts might give you the breadth, but your subject and the micro concepts within your subject will give you the depth. More the depth, better the transfer, better the inquiry, better the action possibility. So this is my say on that. This is my take on that. So this is how it goes. And next is who we are, as it was more of, and I feel this unit is more about self, more about PSPE. I have not, specifically added PSPE to over here, but it's somewhat part of science and social sciences. So it's all about human anatomy, mental health, but also exploring cultural values, societal roles, and relationships. The very fact of relationship and belongingness, because who we are has become, more towards identity, not only the personal identity, but also the identity within a collective whole, within a collective group. So as a family structure within the global, as a global citizen, as we move up. So that is also important. For that, the cultural value, the society roles and relationships, understanding from the social science perspective is very important. And then the language, writing personal reflections, expressing identity emotions, collecting and analyzing data. Here, I would like to say that, though if you have that, and if your unit gives you that scope of integrating all the five probably integrations, nothing like it. But it is not necessary that every unit need to have all integrations. Whichever is relevant, whichever, I only say that the transfer of that subject specific understanding is required within the unit. We should integrate only that. So you have to look into the scope and sequence of each subject, and look what scope and sequence and what transfer of understanding from that subject will help me in my unit to achieve my central idea or that bigger idea. Express ourselves, again, sciences, social sciences in terms of artistic expression. So sound, light, color. How does that, the function of sounds, how light, how colors, how sound waves enable those music, that scientific looked, scientific angle to it, exploring cultural values and perspectives and creative expressions, traditional art forms, language, obviously literature, poetry, uh, classic literature perspective is also taken. How was the literature? How was, for example, how was Fable's perspective in our country? How was this Fable's perspective in another country? How was this Fable's perspectives? As simple, I'll give you an example, like how was Cinderella's story, a fantasy story or a fable story, uh, within our country, within India, how does it look like, the perspective of the people, the Cinderella story in European countries, or probably the Cinderella story in another Asian countries, or the Cinderella story in an African, in any of the African countries. The perspective varies, right? Those cultural stories, the poems, and we try to understand that, the cultural notes, and then try to express ourselves using that. So that can be a wonderful way of, understanding those classic literature. And then you have math, again, geometry, proportion, artistic creations, tessellations, shapes, patterns. It can all be covered over here. This is organize ourselves, obviously, within the sciences, human systems, agricultural system, urbanization, ecological systems, industrial, the process of change, the farming, the industrial farming, how biodiversity works and exchanges. That is where we have to understand the sciences so that we understand how the human systems, like the cultural and economic systems, are impacting those. From that, we try to understand the formal text, informal, formal text, the persuasive essays, and then we try to understand the visual representation of it. And then obviously data collection and consumption, the whole process, the whole graphs. Yes, that's another thing to make. So basically here I would like to say is that you need to pause and reflect. We saw so many subject integrations, all those 5 subject integrations within those themes. Now, when you see these themes, because those subcategories were very, very clear and explicit, I found it easy to map my subjects. How are sciences, social studies, language, math, and the art integrated within each unit? So, I just look into those. So I was now explicitly look into those categories and try to map it. And then are subjects contributing meaningfully to the exploration of the descriptors? Obviously, because, how much it is providing that depth so that the whole central idea can be covered. So are subject specific skills and concepts embedded in the way that promotes the depth? So you need to look back into your own planner and see that how subject specific skills and the depth are there. If not, we need to make those adjustments and changes. If yes, fine, continue. Does the POI
Excuse me,
allow
ma'am.
for, yes?
Uh, Ma'am, I just want to ask you how many key concepts are necessary for EYP as well as PYP for any POI?
See, it depends. Okay, I would say normally people use 3, because within a span of 6 weeks to 7 weeks, when you run an inquiry, if it's an EYP, you might be a little longer probably, but then they are, since in a kindergarten, young kids, the amount of time you might take is a little longer. So 3 key concepts is the ideal one. 2 to 3 key concepts, so that it gives you a nice breadth, and then you can have the subject specific concepts to give you the depth of it. If you take too many key concepts, then you need to align too many subject specific concept, and the depth will become difficult. The subject specific depth will become difficult within that span of time. But if your unit is a year-long unit, because that flexibility is there now. So if your unit is a year-long unit and give you the scope of incorporating more than 3 to 4, Along with giving that subject specific rigor and depth, you can have more. But there is minimum is 2, of course. But normally what I've seen in so many years is 3. Keeping in mind that we run a unit for 6 to 7 weeks, within that 6 to 7 weeks, we will be able to give justice. So we do less, but we give proper depth to the inquiry so that students can make those connections. Inquiry is going to be possible, and student agency is possible, and then student initiated action and transfer is possible. I hope I have answered the question.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. So there is no hard and fast rule, but then the probably the predominant way of looking into the POI, you will usually see 3, 2 to 3, because within that span of time, you'll be able to justify only those. So again, I want to say, so you must be wondering now, how do I know the planning process that my subject specific subjects are being integrated? Are my integrations correct? How do I plan it? How do I put the conceptual focus? Now what I'm going to show you is the CBCI way of planning, which I've been using on, like I started using since 1 year, but now since I'm shifted towards training, but I still promote that. With experience is what I'm going to be sharing with you is the process, okay? This is a complete 8-stage process where it begins from identifying the specific subcategory or the team descriptor, to identifying the disciplinary entry points by aligning to the subcategory, and then aligning the key concepts and the related concepts and the subject clarity, right? And then listing down all your concepts, subject specific concepts, so that you do not miss out on subject specific rigor. And then you frame your complete KUD. By KUD, I mean knowledge, understanding, and skills. D stands for do, that is skills, where all the disciplines are being put together as a coherence in all the disciplines so that we can reach the final central idea. Then we design the learning experiences based on guiding questions, that is teacher's question, which leads to synergistic thinking and meaningful action. And then you design the assessment. I'll show you a basic package of 1 unit of mine so that you will have that clarity how this process looks like. So this is the first stage. So the first 4 steps is covered in this stage itself, right? If you see the center, it is a subcategory. So basically, here I've put the subcategory is, now from your theme descriptor, you will choose which subcategory fits for you. From that subcategory, which is your conceptual focus, which one you are choosing. Yes. Now for that, which subjects are you integrating? And then from within that subject, what is the key concept lens for that subjects, and then the related concepts and micro concept lens within that subject. So if you want to see one example, it's here. So now this is a unit from Sharing the Planet, okay, where I have chosen this is a grade 4 unit. Sharing the Planet. The subcategory is coexistence, complexity, and nature, the last line of it, the last one. And I have taken the conceptual focus from there as coexistence, and complexity, I have turned it into sustainability towards the major part of my unit, right? So if this is, why I'm saying conceptual focus, I try to put it over here because I want my students to write their own central idea. I believe more in inductive approach rather than giving away the central idea. I want students to design their own central ideas toward the end of the unit. So, but then there has to be some conceptual focus and a lens through which we have to begin the unit. So what I do is I call it as conceptual focus that gives a focus to the unit, and I take it from the subcategory. Now, if I have to do about coexistence and sustainability, it's a basic unit on ecosystems. So which subjects I would require? I will take subjects sciences, social sciences, language, and art. Even math is a possibility, but currently I've taken these 4. Now I will take the science from the lens of function and causation. So the students will learn about species, population, biodiversity, energy. It is very important to brainstorm the subject-specific concepts covered. so that you do not leave the subject specific knowledge, skills, and concepts left to chance, so that we are being intentional in our planning process. This is basically like a brainstorming. So when you are collaboratively sitting with your team, right? When you collaboratively sit with all your team, your PYP team. So first you look at the unit from a generalist point of view. So what is the subcategory? What is the conceptual focus? And then you try to look from a specific, you become a specialist of each subject from that perspective. And then you try to put in, okay, in this subject, these concepts will be covered. In social sciences, I will cover the concept of cause and effect, consequences, urbanization, deforestation, pollution, action. I might use a language because probably since the sustainability is a concept and I want students to do that advocacy, persuade my audience. Now, for that persuasion, I have to teach them persuasive text. So within the persuade, now sometimes when I see integrations, we need to understand one thing very clear, all the teachers, that when I say integration, integration doesn't mean that I am teaching anything about sciences in your own particular native language. I'm sorry for the spelling error of persuasive text, uh, but it's not about that. It's about when I say persuasive text, what concepts in that language from the scope and sequence of language, which will be, understood by the students, which will be transferred after their conceptual understanding that will be useful in a unit. In the end, I want them to write a persuasive text. So I will be teaching them what is point of view. How do we use evidences in an argument? How do we structure a persuasive text? What are the difference between facts and opinions? How do we put all together? What will be the word choices? Now, how do we organize the text? So that they can write a persuasive text within the unit. I want that transfer from the language scope and sequence.
One
Ma'am, I
more
have a
question,
doubt
ma'am.
here, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, like say for example, when we are taking any PY for that matter,
Mm.
if it is like a particular unit, we always take any three key concepts, right? As you said.
Yes.
So if I'm taking that three key concepts, so do we need to really make sure only that three key concepts, is aligned with even with the subject focus? Say, for example, when I'm taking math or language or art,
Mm.
so only those three concepts, based on that only I have to take the related concepts.
Uh, Not really as such. In my practice, I really don't do that. I see from this language or from the math scope and sequence, which conceptual transfers or conceptual understanding I require my students to have so that I can run that inquiry, so that they can reach to that bigger idea. Many a times, most of the times it happens that it aligns with it, but sometimes if it doesn't align, that's also okay.
Fine,
Because
ma'am.
Then
somewhere
So
it
down,
means,
yeah, that's
fine.
fine.
It
According to
means
me,
that
that's fine.
for your subject, yeah, for your subjects, there are different lines of inquiry when there is a science, math, and SSC.
See, now you have to understand this. You have your lines of inquiry, right? Now, what has happened is I have split my lines of inquiry with subject focus. If I say that, if I had the unit on, ecosystems, what is an ecosystem? How does an ecosystem work? If you see my completely subject focus of science, it will fit into that, right? If I see, how can we protect? It will fit into your social sciences, plus your language will also fit into it. Your art will support your sciences where they have to make a model of it. So what you need to do is you need to look into your lines of inquiry and map which subject will fit into your lines of inquiry over here. I think I'm making
Can we
sense
make
here.
a separate, if we require something like we should add some more line of inquiry
No,
in
do not
particular
add a line
subjects
of
then?
inquiry. See, do not
Okay.
add a line of inquiry. What I would say is within your existing line of inquiry, just map your subjects.
I
Which
got it. Thank
subject?
you so much.
Yeah, which subject I will choose, which subject focus. So this line of inquiry will be taken from this subject focus. This line of inquiry will be taken from this subject focus, and the third line of inquiry will be taken from, so you have suppose 3 line of inquiry. So the first line of inquiry, what are my subject focus? For the second line of inquiry, what are my subject focus? For the third line of inquiry, what are my subject focus? And I put it over there here. Do I make sense here?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yes. Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
I just
Yes.
had a doubt. So, if I'm not able to align my subject with the lines of inquiry, can I align with ATL skills or IB learner profile, whichever is in the unit?
Oh, yes. You can have one of your boxes as ATLs also, where you're
Yeah,
explicitly teaching like thinking skill, observation skills.
yeah.
Those skills also have to be taught. You can do that very well.
Okay. Thank you.
Not
Thank
a
you.
problem. You can add on. It is not necessary. Again, I'm saying to have 4 boxes. You can have multiple boxes depending on your unit. Depending on your
Thank you.
unit, you can, yeah,
Thank you.
that's it.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
There is no limitation in terms of boxes. It depending on what authentically fits in. I always say, when you see the central idea, look it from a generalist perspective. And when you see the lines of inquiry and key concept, look it from the specialist perspective, so that you get that depth and rigor. Is the key to it. This is how I look into it. And then what I do is I frame my KUD, ensuring subject coherence. So knowledge, understanding, skills. So along with these subjects, if you want to align your lines of inquiry to it, nothing like it. You can have an added box to it, lines of inquiry. For the first line of inquiry, these 2 subjects, the students will know this, will understand this, will do this skills. So if you want to add another box to it, you can very well do that. So that's up to your understanding, because there is no standard format of your planner. It is basically the understanding from your particular school as a whole. How does that process looks like? Because that you remember that blue and yellow sheet of that process. So if you want to put into this, why I like this way of doing it, because I'm not leaving learning to chance. I'm not leaving subject specificity to chance. I'm not leaving key concepts to chance. I'm not leaving anything to chance. I'm being very intentional. I'm documenting the whole process, and I'm making sure that everybody, from the HRTs to the single subject teachers, do understand the alignment towards the big idea. And it is more of an inductive approach than a deductive approach, because now everybody is more towards inductivity, where we do not reveal what's the central idea. We want students to come up with that. So I begin my unit with the conceptual focus. What is their understanding of that conceptual focus? And then dive deeper into it. So if you see this over here, framing my KUD, I know we are so used to, this might be a little, a little kind of a thought process for you, a kind of a mind shift. We are so used to having only one central ideas. For me, I have, because what I believe is, you must have even read a lot of Rachel's, heard a lot of Rachel's masterclass, Rachel French. Our students are capable of articulating more than one, understanding, at least 6 to 9 understanding within that period of 7 to 8 weeks. And this is very much a possibility. And I will say that because I have tried it. The only thing what I do is, suppose my first line of inquiry is about the science subjects. I make sure I have from here, whatever I'm teaching over here, these are concepts. So basically what I do is, what are the patterns or understanding or connection between these concepts I want students to understand and transfer. So basically, if you see this over here, in my understanding, I want student to understand that interaction between species in a habitat forms a community. For this, the students will use the knowledge of types of species and habitat, characteristics of species and habitat, and what they will be able to do is, they will able to make observations and identify characteristics pattern within different species. So I will make sure that I design an inquiry so that this understanding of mine is clear. Now, this understanding is within my first line of inquiry. Even the second understanding is within my first line of inquiry. So within my first line of inquiry, I have 2 generalizations. If you see their thinking skills, which has generalizations, right? I have two generalizations which will help me to support to reach to my first line of inquiry, right? Which is from my science subject. So I make sure my science subject rigor is also maintained. My science subject depth is also maintained. My science subject concepts is also maintained. Yet I'm reaching to my lines of inquiry understanding also. And when I do this as a particular process, what happens is I'm not leaving the learning to chance. So how do I look at it is students will know the process of food chain and food web. The second one I'm doing. The students will know the process of food chain and food web of different habitat. Using this knowledge, they'll be able to analyze the relationship between the organism and the flow of energy so that they understand organisms in an ecosystem transfer energy and depends on each other to sustain life in balance. You will say that what is the difference between this and a central idea? Basically, central idea is also transferable understanding. These are also transferable understanding. But what I'm doing is I'm creating mini transferable understandings so that I'm not leaving the learning to chance. So that my students make sure that there are more than one understandings you can learn within the unit. And each of your subject specific depth is maintained. Now this will help you to showcase that yes, that science depth was given, the social science depth was given, the language depth was given, and the transfer of that has led to the complete understanding of the central idea. If you see the third one, the social sciences one, currently I'm showing you 5, but there's a possibility of 8 to 9 in this unit also because of the space constraint. Social sciences, I would say that the students will know the reason for ecosystem disbalance, basically the impact of deforestation and all. I've missed the point here. And what they'll be able to do is to make, cause and effect relationship so that they understand that human actions like deforestation, pollution, and urbanizations may disturb the balance within the ecosystem. You must be wondering, why are we putting this over here? It's understood, teachers, students obviously do that. But sometimes, yes, we intend to do this, but sometimes as when we design the inquiry, sometimes our designing is not very intentional. We at times leave it to chance for students we assume that they must have understood. But when we frame those short generalizations, we are not leaving the understanding and learning to chance because each of this understanding is being articulated by students. I do not give it to them through inductive approaches, through lesson plan, through inquiry cycle. Students come up with all these understandings by themselves. And then their understanding is so very strong, they're able to make those connections beautifully. What I'm trying to say is, yes, these understandings, I'm not leaving it to chance. I'm being very intentional in my planning. And that is what I wanted to share, that the key focus of generalization is not about creating so many things. It's about being intentional. It's about making those learning intentional, is about giving those engaging experiences, is about documenting those understanding clearly. And then believe me, students feel so nice, so engaging, so transformational. Actions are very visible in the classroom. Language. When
Yeah,
I'm
ma'am.
Ma'am, I have a doubt here.
yes,
Ma'am, when it comes to, breaking the central idea, as you said,
Mhm.
it can happen at any stage of the inquiry, right? Like it can happen at the end or it can happen at the
Yeah,
beginning.
yes,
So usually what we do is like, we will just give them a provocation kind of thing before we start the line of inquiry. So
yes,
students, based on their understanding, they will come up with an idea what we need to achieve. That's the big idea. So they will
yes.
come up with their own idea. I'm in grade 2. So this is how we do. But now what you're telling also, like gives a more depth of understanding, because after learning all the lines of inquiry, after inquiring through all the concepts and all, they will come up to a central idea. So what would be the difference, like whatever we are doing now and whatever you are telling? I think the difference would be like more in a refined way, right? Like when it comes to the
It's an
end
approach. Yes,
after.
it's that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. It's more towards deductive to inductive approach. I'm just trying to shift your focus towards that. See, deductive approaches at times is more like, you tell them, you ask them to explore, and then they validate, yes, what you were saying was right. Right? Second thing is, I directly give them things to explore. They make those connections, they make those patterns, and then they derive their understanding. That is inductive approach. What I'm trying to say over here is, you might be again doing inductive approach only. I'm not saying you might not be, because you're beginning with that and towards the end. What I'm trying to say you is, just to ensure that all your subject specific understanding is being taken care, you just think about it. Do you think that to teach that one central idea, do I really require that 6 weeks? But to bring about that depth of every subject focus within that unit, I require that 6 weeks. So every subject focus, how can I ensure that every subject focus has been, the depth has been there, or students have understood that? What is the documentation of it? I believe that if the students are able to showcase their understanding, if their students are able to showcase their understanding through these generalizations and understanding over here, I am able to give my subject specific rigor, yet I'm able to bring them to my central idea. That is what I'm trying to say.
So you mean to say, like, then through that 6 weeks, maybe at the end of the time only, you will be revealing the central idea, not
I
before
don't
that?
reveal the central idea. I ask them to make it.
Okay. So, but whatever we have framed our central idea, will it not be there in the wall or anywhere?
No ways. No, I do not.
So it is okay. Like their own central idea could be there.
Yes, it could be there. I think that is also is one of the new, if you see the new theme descriptors, they have given you those conceptual focus. They believe in induct. See, I would say that it also depends on situation. Suppose if the topic or the concept is very first time introduced to them, probably at times you might require a deductive approach for some time. But I have long back left the idea of, starting the unit with central idea. No, even in the towards the end, if you if you list down as a practice on your wall all the concepts covered, and through your provocation, through your guiding questions, I'm sure they'll be able to put your central ideas. That's I have done it, and it's doable.
So we can put their central idea for our
Yes.
unit, like whatever they are
100%.
coming up with.
Yes, you can say that this was our central idea, and as a reflection towards remember in your planner you have reflection, you can definitely add that these were students' central idea, and we felt that this is and this is what they're understanding, and it was so very much connected to our central idea. They were able to reach to our central idea, or probably sometimes you will feel that their central ideas were better than mine central ideas also.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Ma'am, how much time you take to complete your POI then?
Ma'am,
The timing?
the timeline will be same. It depends, how do you take your POI. This whole unit which I'm showing you gets over in 6 weeks.
Okay.
The only thing is I target like per week one understanding minimum, so that I can document it, I can monitor it, I can assess it. All right. The language part. The language, usually I take this along, okay. So I teach them specifically how writers use evidences and facts to support and write a persuasive. And art is again, artists use shape, color, and form and texture. So now what I do is, you have teachers' questions. I call it as guiding questions to design my learning engagement. So if you see this, there are 4 boxes: understanding. For which understanding, what will be my case study? For that case study, what will be my questions and my learning engagements to reach to that understanding, like a cyclic process. So if you see over here, one of the understanding from there, I had taken an organisms in an ecosystem transfer energy and depends on. So this is my understanding, which I want all the students to reach. My case studies, or through which I will have drive the inquiry. Probably those who are interested, I give them multiple options. They can either read a text, they can listen to a video, they can listen to an expert, or they can have or they can interview somebody. Anything is okay, depending on their choices. They need to at least have 2 case studies. So here I give them agency in terms of that, because based on their own particular choice, as well as text also, you will have multiple levels. Videos also, you will have different types, depending on to that complete agency they have. To that, I will have my guiding questions. So those my guiding questions will be specific factual questions, specific conceptual questions, those specific questions which will help me to reach to my understanding. And for that, again, I'll give them the agency in terms of they can use any learning engagement, either a cross comparison chart or a De Bono 6-hat or a mind map or anything of their choice, where we have a clear cut understanding, like, laid down agreement, like an essential agreement, who is choosing what in terms of your timeline, in terms of how you do it, and in terms of the requirement. What I give them is, okay, I do not give them understanding, but this is the understanding I'm targeting. What I give them is choices of case study, and with their base of choice of case study, their base of choice of learning engagement, I only support with guiding questions to them, because these questions will help them to identify absolute patterns and make those connections to reach to my understanding. So I still give differentiation. Differentiation is still maintained because my understanding has not changed. But the way I am reaching to my understanding, it may vary from student to student. I give that complete agency. I guide them, scaffold them through my guiding questions to make them reach to understanding. So then my designs work in that way. And then next, what I do is my assessments. Again, my assessments is based on my KUD. At any point, I do not leave my KUD. So if you see that, even my evaluating criteria is again based on KUD. Once the KUD is formed, everything revolves around KUD, because I'm sure, because that is my point where I want the students to go up to. So my learning engagement is again, based on the KUD. Here is the learning engagement. Here is again that. So everything is revolving around that. So if you see this, one of the assessments which I have planned is basically what is in this unit, we explore the challenges faced by living things in coexistence within their habitat. So here I'm targeting two generalizations together. One is the writer's general, that is language, as well as the social sciences. So both those understanding, I'm trying to assess together through this scenario, where students have to write a newspaper article to share their point of view, to persuade the audience, to save the endangered species. So when I put the criteria again, what knowledge, based on the knowledge, what knowledge I'm assessing, what understanding I want them to transfer, and what skills. So whatever was the target here also again goes. I'm a fan of 1 point rubric. So usually you will see me having that, but you can even have in the normal rubric pattern, checklist pattern. But what I'm trying to say is, if it is your KUD, which you're trying to assess, throughout the whole planning and throughout the whole assessing, your KUD should remain the same. Sometimes what happens is, if you see our learning outcomes is usually knowledge and skill, which begins with an action, able to identify, able to do this on this particular knowledge. We miss on that understanding concept of it. So if you put that understanding very specific over here, because every time your understanding cannot be a central idea. If every time your understanding is a central idea, then you're just having one assessment, which is a summative assessment. Where will your formative assessments go? So for formative assessment, which understanding you want them to transfer? So that subject-specific KUD really helps you with that. And then I have my reflectometer in my class where I check, if, both the ways, where students say that, can I justify my generalization or understanding with a new suitable example and facts, is not discussed. With the fact which has been not discussed in the class. That means I'm seeing the transfer to happen. Or I'm able to justify my generalization with some support and with the example done in the class. Or the red ones, so those who are still in the red, where they are only giving generalization without suitable examples, I can ask them to go back, look into it, revisit. Those who are with yellow, I can ask them to have a conversation with the green people, peer them, team them up, revisit another one example given by them, and try to make that better understanding. So this and then for the red ones, I personally sit with them. I would sit with them and then revisit that part of it. So it gives me that appropriate data of where is on my generalization, so that my KUD is like my focus point, is like my lens, is like my North Star. From where I begin. And when I put my KUD, I'm like very, very specific, that I'm not leaving any subject specificity, any subject rigor out. I'm not leaving away all that. My subjects integration is also an understanding which is very much there. So I just want to pause and reflect, now I just want to think about for you to think is, do you think like framing 6 to 9 generalizations in your KUD can support an intentional lesson plan to foster conceptual understanding, and conceptual focus or subcategories can help meaningful subject integrations, or designing assessments based on what, why, and how, help to collect relevant evidences and inductive approach. So think back, do you think I just showed you a complete process, which I do, uh, which might require a slight shift in your planning, but I can 100% assure you that it's possible. I've been doing it past 1 year, and I've been suggesting people to do it. And if you want to learn this, I do a course. Okay. If you want to learn this from TLRI, we do a course where I teach you exactly how to do this planning process, which I call it as Reimagine Classroom through Concept-Based Approach. And if you basically, we teach you the complete framework, the whole process, and the strategies, how to create those lesson plans, how to create those generalizations, how to create those intentional, lessons with those guiding questions so that students reach to the generalizations. Those we'll give you practical strategies, go through, you give you the step-by-step process, aligning with the IB flow, aligning with the IB requirements. Obviously, those who are IB students, those who are IB, and those who are not IB, probably I'll help you in aligning with your planning process as per your curriculum requirements, of course. And then that's me here. So basically, we offer two things. You have an online workshop, which runs for 4 weeks, where we have 2 sessions per week. So total 3 hours, 2 hours of coaching of mine, and 1 hour of my hands-on experience on step-by-step process, which I have just shown you, starting from, identifying the conceptual lens in the subject, creating those generalizations, creating those, learning engagements and guiding questions, and creating those assessments and things. So, I'll be helping you step by step doing it. And then within those 12 hours, it will run for 4 weeks, and 12 hours, 3 hours per week, which will end in an assessment where I will be giving you a personalized coaching call and giving you the certification after the coaching call. So a complete process. Or what we also offer is, if you want me to come to your school for a 2-day workshop, that is also possible with a minimum of 20 participants, with maximum of 40 to 45 participants. I can travel to your school and give you the complete training about, the whole concept-based approach, and align to your specific curriculum requirements, and do it for your school. That's also completely possible. So what we offer is basically, currently it is like 5,000 rupees or $58 per person, for valid for both. So if anybody who is interested can mail it to me at tanu. You can mail it to me, DM me. Those who follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook, you can mail it to at tlritipsy.info. We will also be sharing with you the, to those who have participated, the thing, and this thing. And now, anybody, please, this is a form of certification. I want you to please scan the QR code, so that only when you fill this particular form, you'll be able to get your certificate. So I'm just keeping it at over here. And those who have any questions regarding the course or regarding today's session, I'm open to discuss with you. And those who do not have, for your certification, I request to please scan this QR code. Those who are even sitting, together, please scan the QR code. Yes.
It's a really wonderful session, ma'am. I learned a lot because I'm trying to so much, but I'm still earlier able to make all the things. All the things are now crystal clear. I really want to join your online class.
You will,
When
sure,
will
ma'am.
start, ma'am?
Ma'am, I'm planning to basically, this masterclass series will get over in the month of April. And then I'm planning to start this online from June, first cohort, from June onwards. But before that, if you want to have specifically for if you're an individual participant, obviously we're going to plan the cohort from June onwards. But if you want to have it specifically for your particular school, uh, then you can mail it to me. We can have a conversation and then think around it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Please, I would request everybody to please scan the QR code for your certification. I hope you have liked the session. I hope the perspective on new descriptors and the planning process and the subject specific focus had given you a new direction for you to think around, to ponder around. I've given you some food for thought. There might be some aha moments, some good moments, some new learning moments. Please fill the form for certification. And if anybody wants to, unmute themselves and share certain things, I'm more than happy to listen to you. I hope everybody has scanned the QR code for certification. I'm sorry if the QR code is not scanned, we won't be able to give those certificates. That's the reason I'm, very particular in certification. So I request you to please scan the, and those who are sitting, with one device and multiple people, I request all of you to individually scan your QR code for certification so that, we can do it, because it becomes otherwise very difficult for us to do it.
It was a very informative session, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank
and a different
you.
perspective today we were able to learn. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, I'm stop sharing it. Okay.
Ma'am, please give the QR code again.
One second, give me a moment. I'm happy I had, around 130 participants. I didn't have that expectation. Okay, here we go. 1 minute. Something.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Will the recording of this session be shared with us?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Don't worry, we will be sharing
Ma'am,
the
I need the
recordings.
QR code.
One second. There was an internet lag. Just give me a moment. Yeah, just give me a moment. I just want to know how many people want to learn about these generalizations and new way of thinking. This QR code is not flashing.
QR code is not scanned. Error is here.
It's here now. 1 minute, ma'am. There we go.
Scan QR code from the other phone, then how will able to fill the form?
మీ ఫోన్ పే నుంచి స్కాన్ చేస్తాను.
You can.
ఫోన్ పే స్కాన్ చేస్తాను.
You'll be able to scan this now, ma'am.
It is showing error.
1 second, ma'am. Are you able to see the QR code now?
Yes, பார்க்க முடியுது பட் ஆனா மொபைல்ல ஆக மாட்டேங்குது.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Ma'am, Sonia, ma'am, just click the photo and then do it.
Scan this
See, what you can do
QR
is you
code
can
because I'm
screenshot.
taking the meeting from the phone only.
Ma'am,
But
what you can do
now
is first take the screenshot of it and then from that you can do it.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
If you're not able to do it, take the screenshot
Just
and then you should be able to do it.
and
Take the screenshot of the screen, ma'am, and then scan the QR code. Take the print screen. Sonia, ma'am, take the print screen and then scan the QR code.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes,
still
ma'am.
it is showing. Still it is showing error.
Error? Teachers,
I'm trying
is it
to
showing
see.
error for everybody? No, right?
No.
Yeah.
No,
Ma'am, can
no,
you
no,
just
no.
recheck it? Rescan it properly again, ma'am?
Okay, ma'am, I'll try.
Yeah.
Done, ma'am. Submitted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a great informative session.